So now in this video, we will learn how we can enter and store the vacation data for the employees, and also we will learn the data validation techniques to create a drop-down list which will prevent invalid data to be entered. Now we're going to create a new sheet just like before and say this is vacation. I'm going to name this as vacation. And we will start typing in again the data that we want to capture. I hope that you are beginning to see a pattern in how we do things, essentially creating a bunch of tables, and we follow this exact same type of approach in creating tables and naming tables and then lists and all that. So hopefully you'll see the pattern soon, and then when you start building your own template, then you will be much faster at building it yourself, because there is a lot of similarity and approaches. Okay, so now I've created these column headers. So you can just select, for example, these. You don't need to enter the any data in the table, but you want to make sure that you select something like this and then press Control T. But this time Excel will actually not give you the checkbox by default because it only sees one row of data. So it actually says, I'm not going to give you the option, or I'm not going to select it by default. So you want to make sure you do it and then press OK. And now you see that you have created a table with no data in it, just the column headers, which is fine. Now we can start entering the data in this list. The reason why I'm doing it slightly differently here is because we want to build data validation. So the data validation here means the employee name field should be having only the names that we have entered in the employee sheet. We don't want the data in the vacation sheet to be about an employee who's not even an employee in the employees table. That would create problems in calculations and the accuracy of the data. So we want to make sure that we do enough to make sure the data is good quality. So we will implement data validation now. So to implement data validation, so now that we have selected cell A2, which is the employee name, we will go to data validation. And now you can actually say what type of validation we want to build. I'm going to choose list because we have a list of employee names that we want to be checked for when we enter a name in this column now. So you go to source and you can just directly type it in, but I would also recommend press F3, which will open up the paste name box. And you can see that we have already created the list of employees and also list of holidays. We want the list of employees. And this is where naming it in a way that you would understand makes it very, very easy. So L_EMP, I would interpret that as list of employees. So I'm going to choose them and it'll put that in the formula. You can also type it in by saying equals L_EMP. That'll also work if you know the list name automatically. Now I'm going to press OK, and now you see that there is a drop, down list already created for us. So the drop down list now will say employee 2. I can type it in a start date when the employee took vacation, for example. So this is how we can easily implement data validation in Excel. Now we would also want a data validation for vacation type, because there are different vacation types, and I want to create a list similarly, but we don't have the list of vacation types as a name for us to paste in here. So I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm going to go back here to the settings sheet and say, hey, these, we actually didn't name them as a list. We named the whole table, but not the list. So it's okay if we forget some steps in between. We can always go back and say, now name these as L_vacation type. And now I come back here to the vacation sheet, go to data validation list, and then press F3. There you go. So now we have the list of vacation types. I'm going to press OK, OK. And now I can choose what type of vacation the employee took for the specific date ranges. So for example, I can type in January 5th to January 10th. The employee took vacation, and you can put some notes as maybe another employee 3 will be back up or supporting the person's absence, so employee 3 will be the backup. So you can do that. Let's change the date format again, Control 1, and then go to Custom, and let's type in our favorite DDMMM, y 5th January 2018 to 10th January 20. Okay, now we have created this. And then now when I go and start typing in my second employee, you will notice that Excel does not give me the drop-down list. This is very important to note. Excel's drop-down list will only work because we applied it within the table. It is going to only work within the table. Another approach here, you can just click and drag. So again, what I'm doing here is going to the edge of the table and then drag it along. So now what happens is now we have expanded the table to more rows. And now inside here, you will see that the two drop-down lists will work. Okay, so if you want the drop-down list to work, you'll do this way. And another thing is that even though the drop-down list doesn't work in the first cell outside the table, but once you enter, let's say I'm going to just make this up, employee 2, and now what happens is this row is now part of the table, and now the other validation list will work, the drop-down list will work. And that's because now this row is part of the table, so then it'll work. So keep in mind, the data validation list that we are building in these tables will only work inside the table. So the first cell, if that's a drop-down list, it may not, or it will not automatically work for you. So one approach to overcome that would be just expand the table as you need, and then it'll work. Don't overdo this by doing it for the entire column, thousands of rows, because if you don't need thousands of rows, don't create them. Because the more you do, Excel has to process more data when we do calculations on this data, which we will do calculations on the vacation table. So make sure that you don't create unnecessary data. So if you don't want any of that, just select these, right click, delete table rows. There you go. So now we are back to only 2 rows. So you can enter. So expand the table, but don't go overboard and expand it too much. Just maintain the number of rows that you expect to have, and then maybe when you reach the limit again, you can expand it again. Now I'm going to just type in a few more additional rows of vacation, and one thing you will notice now is that the formatting is being carried over. So we only formatted this for the dates, but as we add more rows to the table, formatting will continue to get implemented automatically. This is another benefit of using Excel tables. So I'm going to type in employee 3, and then I'm going to do June 2018 to June again June 12th, and let's say this is also another vacation. So now we have completed creating a vacation table to store the start and end date of vacation there, and then the employee list and the vacation type are validated list. Please note that the validation is not perfect. Excel doesn't prevent. So if I type in another value here, it will give me an error message to say this value does not match the data validation defined for the cell. However, if you are typing something else somewhere, let's say I do the same thing, copy, and then I'm going to do paste values, you notice that Excel actually accepted it. So the data validation by default provided by Excel is not perfect. So it works, but if somebody is trying to paste the values, it'll still let it through. So I'm going to do undo, Control Z to undo. But keep that in mind. If somebody's pasting the values, it will still somehow get through. So the user should not do that types of copy paste. Or if they do, you notice that there would be a symbol. So I'm going to do redo. I can do redo. And now you will see that this value, even though it is still inside the cell, Excel is giving a little hint here to say the value is invalid. So it didn't prevent me from pasting it in, but it gives me an error warning or a message. So if in case you find this type of indicator or icon in your data, that means that the data is not matching. And so come in here and then choose the right one, and now the error goes away. So please keep that in mind with data validation. It's not perfect. It may still let some of the incorrect values through if somebody is pasting the values directly, and watch out for those type of error symbols and then make sure that you correct them to ensure that the data is of good quality. Now this completes the 3 input sheets we wanted to build. So I'm gonna just clear this thing, clear all. Now that clears that cell. So we have completed 3 sheets of inputs. The setting sheet where we did all the weekends and holidays and vacation types, employee data where we stored the start date of the employee and the end date of the employee, and then the vacation data where each employee will be recording the vacation dates, the different types of vacation, and you can add more columns to store more information about the vacation. Similarly, you can have more columns about the employee information, other information about the employee that you may want to store. For example, phone number, things like that you may want to have, like an email address of the employee or anything like that. So it's all completely flexible. You can build it as you need. And so now we have completed the 3 input sheets, and now we're going to move on to the fun part of writing some formulas and conditional formatting in the output sheets development, that we will be building a team dashboard and also an employee report.